In the study of vowels, we have discussed some of the issues. And one major issue was about the number of vowels and then also about the quality of vowels. And we also discussed that how this auditory space for vowel is useful for the description of vowel sounds. In this session, I'm going to briefly introduce you towards the American English vowels and then also to the British vowels. We would also just try to, very briefly describe them, and then we also would try to compare them slightly, all right? Vowel comparison is important, and the vowels which are selected from the American English are basically the variety which is spoken in American English. That's the standard for American English, and the name of the standard is the Standard American Newscaster English. And the variety which is taken from the British English is the BBC English, right? So these two varieties are used in this comparison. And these comparisons, basically, they show us with the possible relative auditory qualities, right? Like how those possible auditory qualities are maintained and then the target of the vowel production is achieved. These are, in these examples which I'm showing you, are taken from original data, real data basically, and then they are acoustically analyzed, right? Because the acoustics is important. And these are taken from the book by Johnson, Ledderfogen and Johnson, all right? Let me just show you this, cardinal shape of American vowels. This shows that there are monophthongs, pure vowels, these solar dots. These solar dots are basically showing monophthongs, and then these continuous, shapes, this movement is shown for diphthongs. These are diphthongs, because in diphthongs, there is a possibility, very much possibility that there would be a movement from one sound to the other, right? So that's given here on this diagram in terms of these lines. And one more important point here is that the start of the diphthong is darker and it is, thick, right? So this shows that the prominence is here. And then the end is, thin, and it's like just, becoming quite slow, or maybe like it's very weak in the end, right? So the beginning of the diphthong is strong and the end is weak. All right. You see that in this shape, the A vowel is given here, right? A, which is not really the back one, but it is a little from the front part, right? And then in this case, also like the woo, oo, this oo sound is also articulated from the, not exactly from the back, but a little forward from the back towards the front position, right? And then if you just see that this sound, right, it is not exactly the center, but this is just a little behind the center, you see? Little behind from the center of the tongue. And same is the case with this E, which is, just giving the look like it's articulated, not exactly from the front, but a little big from the front, right? And then it is quite high, right? Quite high. And then if I just tell you the four possible position, like high, mid-high, and then mid-low, and low position, right? The four, just the traditional four corners of the tongue in terms of low-high position. You just see that this A is from the low position and O is from mid-low, right? But this O is quite from below from the mid-high position, this O. And this O is quite from the front part, towards the front. Not exactly from the front, but not exactly the back, but towards the center, right? This is from the towards the center position, and same is the case with A. A is not exactly from the low, but a little above the low and more close to the mid-low position, right? And then same is the case with like the mid-high vowel. The mid-high is just close to the mid-high position, this A sound, right? So the difference between E and A, right? And then there is one unusual diphthong like this U, right? So this mid sort of a diphthong, it does not exist in British English, but it's the feature of American English and it's visible here. So these are the features of American English. Now let me just take you to the British vowels, the vowels which are found in British accent of English. And you can just see here that how much difference is found in this by Britishers and then by the Americans. You just see the difference that the British is quite from the towards the center of the tongue, right? But in the case of American vowels, it was from the back, right? And similarly, if I can just tell you this example of the half-rounded O, right? Like in horse, O. So this O, if I divide the back vowels into the traditional 4 position like high, mid-high, low-high, and low position. Sorry, mid-low, and low position, right? So these corners are giving us the possibility of the traditional description of vowel. So this O sound, it is close to mid-high here, right? But in the case of Americans, this is quite from the mid-low. So this is the difference. And this is the auditory space, right? And the, the relative description, right? Then if we just take the example of this vowel, which is quite from the lower part of the tongue, right? But in the case of American, it is towards the mid-low position somewhere here, right? So that's also another good interesting point for this comparison. And if we just also compare these diphthongs, then the British diphthongs, they are also very important to be mentioned here. Like this is quite a long diphthong, oi, like in boy, it is starting from quite the back of the tongue and then it is going towards the, the front part of the tongue. But if you just compare this with the American one, then this is quite short and it is not exactly from those places. Like in the case of British, it should have started from here, right? So that's also another comparison of the vowels, British vowels, and this A, right? And also this E, right? There is a difference between these two vowels. And also there is a difference between this A in American and then this A in British inventory. So these are the differences, and these differences are natural because American English and British English are two varieties. And these differences give us a quite interesting point, not only to analyze vowel sounds for the sake of description, but we can also think about vowel sounds as movements, right? As continuums, as we discussed earlier. And there is the possibility of this auditory space, the relative auditory space, which give us the possibility not only to understand these vowel sounds, but also to describe them for our linguistic analysis.